Welcome back to Cricket Aviation. My name is Jim Payne, and this is part 2 of the canopy installation video series. In this video, we're going to go ahead and fit the actual acrylic canopy to the canopy frame. We're going to install the support clips that go on the front and rear canopy hoops that help support the canopy when it's closed. And we're also going to install the canopy latches. So again, as always, please like the video, and if you're not a subscriber, please subscribe to the channel. I appreciate it, and thanks for watching. Okay, so the first thing I had to do is those spacers that I had in there, I had those all the way out to the edge of the canopy exterior. And so what I did is I just popped each one of those off and stuck them back at least 1/8 of an inch, so that the canopy, once it lays inside of here, will clear those little standoffs that I had, which were just there for the tubing to make sure that I kept the spacing around. But it's cut very, very, very close to what it should be. In fact, there's actually a slight gap here, but that'll go away once it gets pushed in. It's almost at the edge here, so I've got some I need to trim off. I got to trim off along the bottom, I got to trim off here, but this cuts in really close, and I actually have about 1/8 of an inch gap here. Now, I don't think it's that big a deal, because literally once I can push this forward a little bit, once it drops down, it'll push forward here, it'll tuck in, but I'm probably not going to have to trim anything off right here. You can see there's plenty of overlap down here at the bottom. It overlaps in the front similar to the back, so it's very close, but it almost looks like they cut it a little bit out of shape, because I got perfect amount of overlap here, perfect overlap here, and here. But you can see right up here, it almost gets right to the edge. Now, there's got to be a gap, so again, like I said, I think I've got plenty of space, but boy, they sure cut this really close. Yeah, but anyway, this is good, because this is a good start. At least it fits on here, fits in the top, fits in the bottom. I actually don't have a huge amount of trimming to do, which is wonderful. But yeah, let's hope I don't have issues with that gap there. I don't know why. I think when they trimmed it, I think they just came up around here a little bit too close to the mark. But we'll see how it fits. Like I said, I don't think it's going to be a problem, because I think most of that's going to disappear, and I think we're supposed to have 2 to 3 millimeters gap all the way around anyway. So that's about the 3 millimeters there. But like I said, once this gets pushed in, it'll get closer and closer, and probably that'll disappear anyway. But this is a good start. This is a good start. And you can see what I did is I cut off about 1 inch all the way around on the inside and outside with a pair of scissors. I actually put tape on the scissors just in case, so I wouldn't scratch it. Again, continuing to try and be careful. At least now I have most of the paper on the inside and outside, so I can protect it at least the best I can. So yeah, I think what I'm going to do then is probably use blue tape to actually run around the outside here and actually edge that tape right with the edge of this blue tape on the inside all the way around, so that I can start trimming it to that blue tape edge, and just get it so that it starts to fit inside of the where the canopy needs to lay, and start the trimming there, because obviously I got a big lot I need to trim off here, quite a bit I need to trim off the bottom here. But yeah, it's great. I mean, the canopy profile, honestly, is perfect. Absolutely perfect with the airplane. So, I mean, for the standard canopy on the Cri Cri, this looks great. And of course, I had a company do this from a CAD file of the canopy. So I was really hoping it would work out well, and it seems to be working out perfect. So anyway, let me start marking and see if I can get some of this trimmed a little bit more, and I'll show you what it looks like when I get a little bit further here. Well, I did get the bolts in today that I am planning on using for the hinges here. So these are number 6 bolts. These are 2.5 inches long, and they have a 1.5 inch shank. So they work out perfect for this. The shank basically ends right at the end here. And now I'm just waiting on some jet nuts to put on the ends of these. I've got to order those from Aircraft Spruce because I don't have any of those in stock. But for now, I don't really need them. In fact, if I put the nut on here, I can't get a cleco in here to hold the hinge, and I can't even fit a cleco underneath here to hit the second hole. So for right now, I'm just going to leave it like this until I'm ready to actually pop rivet the hinge part permanently to the fuselage. I think I have a little bit more cleanup I want to do on these. I want to round them probably just a little bit more, make them a little more aerodynamic because they're kind of flat and blunt with just the rounded edges on it, before I actually pop rivet this on here. And I'm thinking I'm going to do the bolts this way, that the head looks nice fit into the little cutout recess that I have on both sides, and then if I put the jet nut on this side, I think it'll look better. It says aerodynamic either way, so it doesn't really matter. In fact, the jet nut's probably more aerodynamic than the head of the bolt is, but the plans actually show you rounding the head off. In this case, because mine's kind of encapsulated in this thick aluminum, I think I'm just going to leave it. I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference. If I had the very thin steel and wanted to, make a bullet shape on the end, I could do that. But in this case, I don't think it's going to be worth the effort of disfiguring the end of the Allen head here. So anyway, I'm just going to leave that. We'll wait for some lock nuts, and I'm going to go ahead and start fitting the canopy back on here. All right, I've been working on this canopy for a little bit. What I decided to do was adjust it here in the back first. So I put tape along here and adjusted the canopy so that it fits all the way along here. This was the quick and the easiest way to do it, because I do have a gap up there in the front, and there was minor changes that I had to do to this to get it to fit. So I've got it fit on both sides now. The only thing I'm having an issue with now is now that I try and push it in, of course it's catching down here at the bottom because I actually haven't trimmed anything off the long sides here. So what I'm going to do is start trimming, probably 2 to 3 millimeters off of each side, just to get it to sit all the way down and that the sides will go all the way in. And then I'm going to work my way to the front, because once this is attached, or not attached, but once this is cut to fit just inside of here, these aren't hitting the bottom anymore. Then I'll come back over here and start trimming around the front here. I think that's the easiest way to do this, just because there's going to be very little movement here this direction when I cut the front there. It's just going to sit down a little bit lower. And even if it does sit down lower, and let's say it tilts just a little bit, it just means I have to come back here and actually just shave more off this bottom corner. It's not really going to affect the top here. So again, just working a little bit at a time, and I'm using a battery powered, DeWalt disc sander to just basically sand down to my tape line. So I'll probably take this tape off and then retape it again at the end when I do the final trimming that needs to be done, because there does need to be a slight gap there. For right now, I'm just trying to get it to fit in there and then go back and adjust the gaps everywhere so that it is the way it should be. So I'm just going to keep working on this, and I'll show you what it looks like when I get a bit further here. So I was using just a handheld DeWalt orbital sander. That worked pretty well, but it was very slow. So I did switch to using a belt sander, and that worked really quick, especially when I could just tape off the edge of the plexiglass where I needed to sand to, and then just use the belt sander to just sand it down. That worked great. So I was able to make pretty quick work of this. What I will say is the fit is absolutely perfect. I mean, as far as the shape of the canopy, it couldn't be better. I mean, just even, let me see if I got a straight edge. I didn't check this, but I mean, even this is almost perfect. This is absolutely perfect. So I mean, I couldn't be happier with the fit of the canopy all the way around. I mean, it's a perfect perfect shape. I do still have a high spot back here, so I am going to have to do something with that hoop, either replace it or see if I can adjust it to get the back here a little bit lower. I just had the hoop a little bit higher than I should have had it, and then with the additional lift that I ended up getting from these hinges, just where the tubing had to go over it, and it rolls around that radius, it just lifted it a little bit further than I had thought. And so I do have a gap, not a gap up here at the top, but there's a little step which I need to get rid of. So definitely going to have to deal with that. I think I'm going to deal with that next, because I'm trying to figure out, as far as the steps go, I'm going to glue this to the tubing using the PRC glue, which if I glue it with that, you're not supposed to have to put screws in it or rivets or anything like that. You're just supposed to be able to bond it. And of course that stuff sticks. If you've ever used PRC before, it's actually amazing stuff. I've used it before in fuel tanks on a Boeing 727 years and years ago. It's like a fuel tank sealer, but it's a rubber that sticks to just about anything, and I mean it does not come off. And so attaching the canopy per the plans using PRC is one method where you don't have to drill any holes in the canopy and put screws in it. So I think that's obviously the method that I'm going to use, but the question is do I final trim this canopy before I glue it, or do I just get it to fit where it is right now so that I can glue it to the tubing, which is actually what I'm thinking of doing, and then going back later after it's attached to the tubing and do the final trimming, because and actually adjust the gap, because then it will be glued to the tubing. It's not going to move. The hinges are attached. It's not going to move. And then I can actually do the final fit and get that gap that has to be in the canopy all the way around exactly where it needs to be. I think it'll be a little bit more accurate fit doing that. But anyway, so yeah, let me figure out what I'm going to do with this tubing, see if I can get this to sit down in the back a little bit more. I am going to have to do a little bit more adjustments here on the sides of the canopy, I think, because it's just touching everywhere. Literally, it just fits. You can see there's actually no gap there at all. And so I have a nice tight fit right now. I wanted to leave myself in as much material as possible. Now, once I started sanding this wasn't that big a deal. I was really worried about scratching it. I was worried about breaking it. I was worried about a lot of different things, and I was worried about the fit, but the fit was pretty straightforward. Once I started working from one side and working my way around, as long as I went back and fit the canopy exactly where it was before I taped off the next spot, it went fairly easily. So I was worried about more than I think I should have been. Now, what I will say is that I was very careful about not dropping this, because you tend to pick it up on one side and then grab it on the other side, but if it slipped out of my hand and hit the floor, there's a very good chance it could have cracked. And so I was very careful about every time I picked it up. I was like, don't drop it. So don't drop it, because that's probably the only damage I could actually do to it is cracking it because I dropped it. Using the sander, I wasn't going to really hurt it in any way that I could see anyway. And I didn't want to try and use cutting blades on this, although I know that you can use like the vibrating tools. I did see a video on YouTube where somebody was using one of those, and if the canopy had come bigger where I had to cut bigger chunks off of it, I probably would have used that too, but this was cut so close that I didn't really have to worry about it. But anyway, yeah, let me keep working on the tubing a little bit more, see if I can get the fit a little bit better and get it ready so that we can actually glue it down. And I have to figure out how I'm going to actually glue it and hold it into place, and how I'm going to get the glue in there and not make a huge mess. So I did adjust this. I filed off the bottom of this a little bit shorter and then re-drilled the holes to see if I could get the canopy to fit right across the top here. And of course, this is how much I had to adjust the rivet holes. Now, I am going to bend another one of these. I don't like the fact that those rivet holes are so close together, and the final rivet hole is not drilled out to the full 1/8 inch size. That's only 3/32. So the amount of material I'd have between one hole and the other, if I were to leave this, isn't enough that I want to worry about not making another one. So again, this would have been the biggest mistake I've left on this airplane had I kept this tubing, but I've got an extra piece of tubing. I had planned on making at least a mistake on making this frame, and I did. So I'm just going to bend another one and replace it. It's not that big a deal, and we'll go from there. But I did get this to fit absolutely perfect up here at the top, where the canopy was exactly flush, and the profile of the rear canopy to the front canopy is perfect. So I'm very happy with the canopy. I couldn't be more pleased with how the canopy turned out itself. And of course, I was always concerned about that and whether or not it was going to fit right and whether the shape was going to be exactly right, because again, I had to have a company make that for me off of some drawings, and of course you're hoping you didn't make a mistake on the drawings. But anyway, everything's looking good. I'm going to go ahead and make a new rear hoop here and re-drill both sets of holes and try and get this to the point where that canopy is fit back in here, and that there's enough of a gap around that it's not binding anywhere, so that I can glue it onto the frame, because that's what I'm going to end up doing, is gluing it to the frame, then hopefully taking the entire frame and canopy off and then do final gluing on it. So what I'm hoping to do, and this was a dilemma I had yesterday, is trying to figure out, the PRC glue is very expensive. You can get a 6-ounce tube that you can mix, but it's like $95. And the problem with the tubes is once you mix them, you have to use it all. And my goal was to be able to just go around the metal frame here and just put areas of glue, or put a very tiny bead maybe right down the center. I hadn't decided how I was going to actually attach it, but my goal was to get the plastic canopy just attached to the frame, with the frame on here just like this, and I was going to either strap it down or something to get it to make sure that it attached itself to the frame properly, and then remove the whole thing and then go around and reapply a bead inside and outside the tube to do the final bonding between the canopy and the frame, and where I could on the inside then tape it off and remove the tape once it's dry, or before it dries, because obviously the problem here is that if I glue the canopy on with it on the airplane, I can't get on the inside to clean up anything. I can't get on the inside to remove tape before it dries. I can't do anything. So again, my goal was just to get it just tacked down to the frame, take it off, and then do the final finishing. And I think I'm still going to do that, but this was a dilemma though. I could probably get the entire canopy maybe done with 6 ounces of glue, but I can't do it all at once. So then I would need 2 tubes of 6 ounce, which is like $180. But then I can buy a pint of it in containers that isn't in a pre-mixing tube, but that's probably way more than I need. So I think what I'm going to do, because it is cheaper to buy the pint container, is just buy a pint container, mix up what I need to tack it down to the tubing, pull it off, and then mix up what I need to be able to do the final filleting around both sides of the tube. And then I'll have to buy some plastic tubes or some kind of squeegee or something to be able to apply the glue after the fact, and so it's gonna require a little bit more money, but it is, like I said, in the long run it's cheaper to buy the pint than it is to buy 2 6-ounce tubes and mix them and throw them away. So just a quick note also, I did mark the very center of this before I even started bending it, but I marked it with a Sharpie here, and I am keeping track of that center line with respect to the center of the forms here for the hoop in the back, because as I seesaw this thing down, I sand one side, come back over, I'll sand the other side. I do try and keep this center line centered here, because that does make sure that these 2 sides stay at the intended center point. And you can see I'm actually off a little bit now. I've sanded this side, and now I need to sand this side, and so this kind of tells me, it's kind of a gauge to tell me exactly which side I need to adjust next. But yeah, let me keep going on this, show you what it looks like in a little bit here. All right, so the hoop is now fixed. I've got all the holes drilled in the corners. I've got the canopy now refit, and I have a perfect fit now on the canopy. I just have to push it in a slight amount, and it fits all the way around. And so anyway, I think I'm pretty much at a point where I could glue the canopy onto that frame. Now, there are supports that are supposed to go on the hoop, the fixed hoop back here, that hold out the tubing here that wraps around. So one of the things I did do is when I bent the sides here, I made sure that I slightly underbent them. I didn't want to have the canopy sticking out, because if you fold it over and it hits those stops that are supposed to be placed on the fixed hoop, it won't touch them, or it won't allow those retainers to push the tubing out just a little bit, and you want a little bit of pressure on there. So I made sure, at least here on either side, that the canopy is actually sunken in slightly past the flush point, so that I can push it back out with those retainers that are supposed to be on there. I'm trying to figure out if I should install those before I glue the canopy on. I'm kind of thinking I should, but then I've got to actually it'd be easier to do that probably now, because I can get in here and actually shim the tubing around there to the actual thickness of the canopy, and then I can set the canopy on here, push it up against the tubing, and double check and make sure that it is flush, which is easier to do now before I trim it, where I'll have a gap there. And right now I can tell it's exactly flush around here and where it isn't. So I've got that same situation up here. If I push the canopy in here, it's a little bit inset from the edge, but again, there's supposed to be a metal angle piece that's supposed to be attached to the front cowling here that pushes the tubing back out, or at least supports the tubing when it goes around. So so I think I am going to probably work on those supports next, see if I can get those positioned, because I can clamp them on the inside, where I think they need to go, test the fit with the hoop and the canopy, and kind of work myself from the hinge side over, which I think is the best way to do that. So yeah, let me start working on that next, and I'll show you what it looks like when I get some of those cut, and we'll continue to check the fit here. So continuing to work on the canopy frame here, I did make these clips, which were supposed to place, here along the canopy frame, and rivet these in, just to support the canopy. And it works out that where you position these can also flex the tube a little bit here to keep the canopy frame exactly even with the outside. So I've kind of started to mark around here, trying to figure out where these should go. So I did notice that in the plans I counted rivets to try and figure out where to put these, but 1, 2, 3, 4. I centered the first one on the 4th rivet down, which according to the plans is where it is. The rivets start to disappear in the plans, so I can't really tell exactly where they are. But what I did is I went down to 14 here. You can't really see them too good behind the tape, but I put a mark there. That seems like as low as you can go, because you have to cut this thing so small in order to have it fit. So you really can't go any lower. You don't have any material to attach to. But then I just evenly spaced them. So I measured from here back to here. It was about 12¼ inches, and then I just divided that up into additional spots here to put these support clips. These get 2 rivets in them, and I haven't trimmed them down. I did the width at 28 millimeters, which are supposed to be, but I just used 3/4 inch angle, and I do need to cut these off a little bit shorter. Some of these need to be even cut off even shorter down here, where we'll have to just put some tape behind it and just mark them and cut them off so that they're flush with the rear canopy hoop. Now, it does mention in the plans, at least mine show, that there's supposed to be 16 of these, although the actual drawings show 8 on the back, so 4 on each half. But then on the front here, it only shows 3 on each side, which is 6. So that means 14, not 16. So according to that, I've got 2 extra. I'm not really sure if I missed something, but that's what it appears to be. And this hoop's quite a bit smaller, so getting 3 in here is probably the most you're gonna get or probably need. So I'm probably gonna have 2 extra here. But anyway, I'm gonna keep working on just positioning these clips. What I decided to do is go ahead and get all these clips in before I bond the canopy, because then when I have the hoop attached here and actually glue the canopy on, which I want to do with it sitting on the airplane, when I initially glue it, I want these hoops to be in the exact spot and get the pressure outward here where it needs to be. And again, it's kind of a double check to make sure that I have the hoop positioned correctly, the right distance from the edge. Especially when I bond it, I want to make sure that I'm not flexing the tubing and the canopy to try to get it to the right position and be flush with the front and rear canopy. So let me get these clips done. I'm trying to get these done before I go so I can have at least 90% of the work done in order to have it ready to be able to glue the canopy on. So I'll show you what it looks like when I get a couple of these, hopefully with some Clecos holding them in. I did run these through the mill, and I milled these down to 14 millimeters. Now the plans call for 12 by 12. I left this side alone for now, but I wanted to cut the height of this. And I did these 2 millimeters taller just because I wanted a little bit of an overlap over the center line of the tubing here. If I would have done these right at 12, it would have been right at the center line, which I didn't want it to attempt to try a roll over the front of it if there was some pressure on it. So I decided to just go 2 millimeters longer, did 14, and that seems to be plenty. But yeah, it gives me that little bit extra height to prevent the tubing from catching at the center line of it. And the other thing I figured out too is that down here, if I put this down where I had intended to put it, which is like right here, there isn't enough depth here really to get rivets in the top and the bottom here. So I am going to move up one more rivet, which gives me plenty on the top and the bottom, and gives me a 12 millimeters minimum on the bottom that I really should have in width. And I think that's going to be good anyway. I got plenty of support here with this giant bracket. So I think by moving this up one rivet, which is about right here, will be perfect, and then I'll respace these so that I have 4 on each side. And what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to clamp these in. I'm going to put the canopy on. I'm going to check for flush out here, and then I'm going to drill at least one of the holes here, probably 3/32. Go ahead and put a cleco in it, and then go ahead and check it again. And then what I might do is just pop rivet one side of it in, and then come back after it's pop riveted in one side, reposition it, check it again for flush, and then pop rivet the other side in. Because I do want a little bit of pressure on this. You can see the tubing moves quite a bit if I just put a little bit of pressure on it, and I do want to get that in the right spot and have the exact gap that needs to be between the tubing and flush with the front and rear canopy cowlings here. So yeah, I'm going to keep working on this. I just want to let you know I'm going to move this up one rivet to 13 down from the top. And then, like I said, I cut these off at 14. And I think what I'm going to do is probably leave this other side long unless it's off of the edge of the frame here. I'll cut it off even with the frame if it's hanging off. But like up here, I think I might just leave them because it does give it a little bit extra support if there's pressure, especially up in these corners here. And provides a little bit more support against the hoop here. So I think that's what I'm going to do. At least that's my plan for now. So let me see if I can start positioning these in the right place, see if I can get some holes drilled, see if I can get some clecos in this, and start positioning these to get them to a point where I can actually put some pop rivets in. So I took all those little clips, and what I did is I ran them through the mill, and I pre-drilled all the rivet holes to 3/32 size. And you can see I've clamped one in here even with the top one that's 4 rivets down. And then what I'm trying to do is by clamping, I actually clamped one over here and I clamped one over here. And what I'm trying to do is get this hoop centered because it wants to walk a little bit this way. So I put one over here just to pull it that way, and then I put this one up against the side of the piece of tubing in there. And what I'm checking is for flush out here. And so right now it's perfectly flush here. And so now I know what I can do is take this canopy back off, and I'm going to drill those 2 rivet holes right where that one goes, and I'm just going to work my way back down here. Obviously I'm going to move this one up one rivet and I'll respace these, but I think this is what I'm going to do. The critical thing is these top 2 because that centers the hoop. The rest of these will just kind of pull the hoop out just a little bit to make sure that I'm flush all the way along here because it's a little bit in right here. So yeah, let me go ahead and drill these, and I'll start working my way back down here, and then we'll go around the other side because the other side's flexible because the it doesn't have hinges on the other side, so there's no actual attach point at this point. It's just free to bend. So I'm gonna make sure I get this side correct first, and then work my way around the other side. Okay, I've got all of the support clips now on the back hoop installed and adjusted. I had the canopy on and off basically for every one. I clipped one at a time. Just made sure that it was flush, and went ahead and drilled the holes. So I think what I'm going to do next is I need to cut off the 2 bottom ones here because they're overhanging the hoop back here, and then I'm going to go ahead and just trim this one off just a little bit. I think I'm just going to leave these other ones long. Again, it provides a little bit of additional support, especially up here at the top where there seems to be a little bit more tension. But yeah, this looks good, and I think I'm going to go ahead and pop rivet these in. I'm not necessarily going to paint any of this because we're going to be putting foam over it and gluing that down and shaping that, because you're supposed to fill in around here with the Divinycell foam basically, and curve it off and basically hide these brackets in a hoop of foam. And I don't know if I should be covering that with fiberglass or not, but for now we're just going to get this installed the way it's supposed to be with these clips, and they're ready to be pop riveted in, so I'm just going to go ahead and do it. But I am going to start working on the front hoop here, just doing the same thing. Again, I'm using fewer clips because I think we only need 6 instead of the 8 that we have on the back here. But anyway, yeah, it's working pretty good. Let me go ahead and work on the front here and get these trimmed and get these pop riveted on. So I finished installing the front canopy hoop supports just like I did in the rear ones. It worked fine. The only thing I would say is that I'd probably move this one up one rivet too on the outside. These holes ended up really close to the edge of the frame here, and again, like I said before, I don't think it matters that it's moved up slightly. But anyway, they're not going to be overlapping the sides, so it's fine. Again, this is not technically a structural part of the airplane or flight control part of the airplane, so I'm not too concerned about it. But yeah, these are now ready. So now what I've got is, you can see all the 3/32 clecos that are not only in the hinge supports, but the frame supports over there, and all of these supports. These all need to be drilled out to 1/8 inch, and then I need to pop rivet everything. So that's probably the next thing I'm going to do, because I'm basically ready at this point to glue the canopy down to this frame. And so the last step would be to just get all of this secured and final riveted, so that when I put the canopy on here, it's in its final fit. So that's what I'm going to do next, is just go around and just start drilling these out to 1/8 inch and putting some pop rivets in everything. And I guess I'll show you what it looks like when it's done, because I don't think I need to do anything else in the meantime. I am going to go ahead and pop rivet these hinge supports onto the fuselage also. I can just slide the bolts off and the hinge will come off with the canopy frame, but again, there's no reason at this point not to go ahead and put all the pop rivets in there too. These will be countersunk ones. All of these other pop rivets will be just regular dome head rivets. So I'm going to go ahead and start doing some drilling and see if I can get some pop rivets in and get the rest of this done. Well, I got the rest of the pop rivets that I needed to order, and I went ahead and pop riveted in all 4 of the corners of the support here for the canopy, and so that looks great. What I'm working on now is I'm going to go ahead and pop rivet in the hinges that are attached to the fuselage here. I did decide I'm going to glue those in just to make sure they're sealed underneath, because I don't want any water or moisture getting underneath these hinges, because that would be a prime place for corrosion to occur. Especially since those are outside the airplane. So that's what I'm going to work on next, to get those pop riveted in. I did countersink the holes on there, so you'll see what it looks like when it's done. The other thing I did too is I installed these pop rivets, which I had never put in up until now. I actually had kind of forgotten about them. In fact, the ones over here I haven't installed yet. I do need to take that blue tape off. I'll go ahead and put those pop rivets in across there also. But yeah, I'm getting pretty close to having the frame done. I also got the glue. I picked it up at Oshkosh this week. To go ahead and glue the canopy onto the frame here, which I'm going to hopefully work on tomorrow. So I did finish gluing and riveting the hinges in on this side. I did finish installing the pop rivets on the other side there. So I've been now trying to work on these retainers that are supposed to kind of keep the hoop in the correct position when you close the canopy on both the front and the rear canopy hoop here. But before I actually install the pop rivets on that, I do want to do one more fit with the latches installed for the canopy. Now, a long time ago when we did the fuselage, we installed a nut plate here on the top of frame 4 and a nut plate on the top of frame 6 here. And those are for the canopy latches that we're supposed to make, that will connect up here with a little hook that pull the canopy down here, and it will force the canopy then to rest on these retainers that are on the front and rear hoop. I just want to get all this fit checked before I actually install those and glue the canopy on. And what I want to do is cinch the canopy down with the latches here, and then check the fit of the canopy one last time before I glue it on. But I've come up with a different way of doing these canopy latches. Now I'm going to use these same holes. And what I've essentially done, and I'll show you in a minute, is that instead of making the latches, which you can make out of aluminum, I decided to go ahead and buy something that was already made that is equivalent, but what I would consider actually better than what's in the plans. So let me show you what's in the plans first, and we'll go from there, and then I'll show you what I actually picked up that I'm going to try and use. Okay, so you can see on the plans here, these are the canopy latches that you can go ahead and make yourself. This is basically a plate that mounts. This is that top hole that's already in the fuselage. This is a bottom hole that we're supposed to create and put another nut plate in on each of the frame 4 and frame 6. And then there's a little lip that's bent here at the top that's supposed to catch the canopy as it comes down. So that's the retaining lip that the canopy is supposed to press against, so that it's correctly positioned on the side of the fuselage on the closing side. So You can make all these pieces if you want and actually assemble your own latches. Here's the fully assembled latch, and you can see the hook here at the top. And it's a hook and then press down setup, and then there's a little tab that sticks out here on the side of it, so you can put your finger underneath it on the side of the frame and pop it out and pop the latch loose. These look great. I mean, I know other people have made them. I just thought it was a little bit complicated to try and actually spend the time making these when you can really buy latches similar to this. Now, the ones that I bought are steel, so they definitely are heavier than this. So if you really want, a light airplane and you're really concerned about weight, maybe you do want to make these yourself. But I just didn't want to go through the hassle of trying to do this. So I came up with an alternative, and I'll show you what it looks like. So this is the alternative latch, and I purchased this on the internet. And what some benefits to this is it works a bit in the opposite, in that you release the latch from the top down, whereas the ones I just showed you in the plans, you reach down here and pop them up. But some of the benefits are this is that it has this retainer here, so it's got like a thumb release that you press this and it pops out. So it actually has a locking mechanism built into the latch assembly, which I kind of liked. So again, when you close it like this, and it just pops closed and it latches so that it doesn't come apart unless you pinch basically with your thumb, and it's fairly easy to open. The other benefit of this one is it has a threaded anchoring side that connects to the canopy, so you can lengthen and shorten it to fit the canopy properly. And I think that's a very nice addition to this too. Now, what's supposed to happen with the original latches is there was an adjustment up and down, but the adjustment up and down actually did move the stop for the canopy up and down. Now, if it's at an angle, technically, if you moved it up and down, it should keep the canopy in the same place, hopefully. But there was really no other adjustment on that. You had to move the entire latch and the point where it's supposed to stop the canopy. So what I did is I decided I'm going to use these instead, but what I had to do is then create a mounting plate for this, and this acts as the bottom plate that has the stop in it for the canopy. That this has to be bent out just a little bit so that this attaches to frame 4, and frame 6 has it bent out so that the canopy then rests on this edge and stays in the correct spot. And then I can still use the top bolt hole. I created a bottom bolt hole, and this is a little bit farther apart spacing with the holes. Obviously I kept the top one at the same spot, but because I had to clear the mounting on this, which is about 1 inch tall, I went ahead and moved this screw down. I think it was probably 4 millimeters or something. But that allows me then to attach this to this plate here, and I can just put a couple of countersink rivets in from the backside and rivet this to this plate, and then this plate can be bolted in at the top and the bottom. I still have the adjustment for the stop up here, but then I also still have adjustment here for the actual latch mechanism, so I can control how hard it pulls down on the canopy and how tight it seals against the whatever weather stripping we put in there. I did notice, I went back and watched a video of the Cri Cri Jet. It's the white one. I think it might be from, I don't know if it's from Australia or New Zealand, but it's one, there's a video out on YouTube, and it's an all-white airplane that they retrofit with some 50-pound thrust jet engines on it. But I was looking at his throttle controls on there to see how his hands were fitting with the throttle controls, and I noticed when he closed his canopy that he had what appeared to be this exact same latch. So this latch has apparently been used before on other Cri Cris. I just didn't realize it. But anyway, I like this setup. I think it's going to work really well. And then I don't have to make those parts, and I think this cost me $12 or $13 or something like this to buy this. So again, I really like this setup. This is what I'm going to try and use. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and bend the top of this, and I'm going to make another one of these too, but I'm going to test fit one first. But I'm going to bend the top of this. I'm going to put a screw in the top hole and see if I can fit it where it needs to go, and see if everything is fitting correctly before I cut another one of these out and actually rivet this to to the mounting plate here. But I'll show you what it looks like when I get this in the airplane, so you can see exactly how this is fitting. Well, here is my mounting plate for my latch installed, and you can see I did bend the little tab up there at the top to just catch the bottom of the canopy. So this is supposed to kind of go like that and pull the canopy down, from that latch position down. Now, after looking at a few things here, this plate here is adjustable based on what it was in the plans for the plans latches. I would never want to adjust this down from here at all because there's almost not enough sticking up here to catch the canopy. You know, when you're pulling it down, you got to pull it down past this, and I kind of actually wish this was just a little bit longer. So there's no way I'm going to want to adjust this down. So I think what I'm going to do is when I do the next plate and redo these, because I actually found out I do have to redo these, I'm probably just going to drill a bolt hole at the right spot and not worry about slider adjustments up and down on the plate. Now, when I did install the latch to test fit this, I did have some problems because I didn't compensate. Well, I shouldn't say I didn't compensate. Let me grab the latch and I'll show you what the issue was. Okay, so this is the latch, and what I had done originally is measured from the center pivot point here up to where the default locking or latch position was, and it was, I think, 48 millimeters. Don't hold me to that, but whatever it is whatever I measured here was exactly in the plans what the measurement was from that center position point to the top of the latch in the stock ones, which I thought, well, that's perfect. It's at least really, really close. But what I should have measured from was behind here where the actual pivot point is, which I didn't. So what ends up happening is the latches that are on the in the plans have a little bit longer throw. In other words, from the fully open position to the fully closed, there's more travel than what this one has because it only has a small amount of travel from this pivot point down at the bottom to this pivot point here. But anyway, what ended up happening is that this latch actually has to be mounted about 8 millimeters, 7 or 8 millimeters lower than where I have it here right now, because once I pulled it tight to latch it, it was still loose because, again, I had this mounting position wrong. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and redraw these on the CAD system. Just going to drill a hole exactly where this one is right now. I'm going to extend these holes down here and this down here, 7 or 8 millimeters to get closer to where I need to be for the length of this in the closed position. And then we'll come back and test fit it again. So here's the first one that I have completed with the mounting plate. I just countersunk two 1/8 inch rivets in here and just riveted this with a rivet squeezer. Onto here, that should hold plenty good. And you can see I've now got enough room behind here to put in a screw. Now, because I took the slots out of here, I don't really have to worry about being able to tighten these screws so much to prevent it from slipping up and down, since it's just a single screw hole. So I'm switching to a button head screw that I'm just going to use for both of these to mount it. The other issue I was having is with the NS1801 with a washer underneath it, which is the, I don't have one here, but it's the the regular wrench head with a washer underneath it. It actually set up a little bit too high, so that when I did close this, I started having some interference back here with the latch mechanism. So that seems to be solved if I just switch to a button head. So I'm going to go ahead and install this one. Now, this is the rear mount or rear latch. The front latch, I ended up with a little bit of a problem because this lower mounting hole got very close to one of the rivets that I had to drill out of frame 4. I went ahead and put a countersunk rivet in that hole, but I can't get the 3/32 rivets on the nut plate to fit behind there because it's going to get in the way of the rivet or get very close to it. So what I'm going to do is just get a single arm, one-sided nut plate to install back there, and I'm going to pick that up at Aircraft Spruce probably on Monday. Today's Friday, so I'm going to go ahead and get this installed and test this one on the airplane, since I haven't haven't fully latched it yet. So let me go ahead and install this. I'll latch the canopy on the back and I'll show you what it looks like. So this is the rear latch installed now. Let me see if I can do this with one hand, but you can see the canopy is going to come down and it's going to catch on the front of this catch here and slide down on there. It just needs to be pulled tight, and of course it's got to be pulled down with about 3 millimeter gap here in the back and the front. And of course, once I get the front one in and pull it down, it'll scoot it back a little bit because it's a little bit hitting over there. But anyway, so if I take this, I can put this up in here now like this, and then you basically just lift up. Oops, I gotta make sure it stays on this side of that latch. This is gonna go like this, and then it just snaps closed like that, and it wants to stay locked even with this not even there. It's past the center position, so it's actually pushing against it. But that's now latched down. It looks good. The gap's good. the gap back here will fix itself a little bit. It'll just shift back a little like that when I push this front one down like this. So that's the front one. It's going to hit there and pull it down also. But yeah, this is going to work out really well, and I like the fact that it's adjustable so that I can actually, you know, tighten it or loosen it depending on how much of a gap I want underneath here or how much I want it to press against whatever seal I end up with. So yeah, I'm going to keep working on this. I've got to wait to get that other nut plate that's going to go back here so I can actually put the rivets up above it, countersunk behind there, and then I'll go ahead and get that one installed. And once these are all installed, I'm just going to fit the canopy back on here, make sure that it still fits nicely around the hoop. I'm trying to figure out how to glue this on here because what I'd like to do is actually have these latches latched, glue the canopy on, make sure that the gaps are all good all the way around when the glue is drying, and then take the canopy off. But of course the problem is I can't open the canopy once it's glued on here if the latches are latched because I can't get the latches unlatched. So trying to figure out exactly what I'm going to do with that. Now, if you're doing aerobatics and you're going to wear a parachute and all that, obviously these latches are not really good for that because you're not going to be able to get out of this airplane very quickly if you need to. I'm eventually going to try and figure out a solution for that. I figured for right now I'm just going to do this, but you know, since this is kind of following along with the plans, let me just unlatch this. You just need a finger and that flips open, comes off, and you can see that lays down. But yeah, I'm trying to figure out also how to close this canopy from the outside, because right now with these type of latches, you know, this canopy is just going to sit here. There's nothing to lock it down when you're not at the airplane, and that's a bit problematic too. So I'm trying to figure out, even with these latches, if there's any way I can get something from the outside that I can turn and, you know, pull the canopy down. So I got to figure that out too. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that. I'm kind of just taking one step at a time here, and I just want to get this done first so I can at least get this canopy glued on here and go from there. But anyway, let me go ahead and finish up this next one, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's completely latched down. Well, I cheated a little bit on this one. I went ahead and installed it, and I finished riveting it to the plate. And then I just put just a regular hardware store nut on the back of that, you know, until I get my nut plate that's going to go there. But this fits great. I'm actually really happy now that these are installed. I'm looking at the edges of the canopy where it's going to go here, and the fit I think is going to be good. I'm actually going to take the canopy and set it on top of here and just see, you know, if it actually looks like it's fitting all the way around exactly how it should. But yeah, I'm actually quite happy with these latches. Again, you can just take your fingers and just a thumb, and you just pop it, and it pops off, and they lay down flat. So I'm actually quite happy with how those are going to work. And I think even when you're sitting in the cockpit, you should be able to reach over with just a finger and a thumb and pop it off, so it should come off pretty easily. But anyway, I think I'm going to go ahead and test fit the canopy on here and just do one final fit before I am ready to hopefully glue it on, hopefully in the next few days. So I finished pop riveting all of the supports in here for the front and rear canopy hoops. Those turned out pretty good. I did round the corners here. There is some interference when you put this canopy down that these will actually kind of catch a little bit on this tube. It's kind of got to be clipped around them, but I've noticed that on other Cri Cris also, so it's not unique to mine. But anyway, now that that's done, I'm basically at a point now where I can start prepping the canopy to be glued on.